Welcome to the Appleseed, the storytelling podcast from BYU Radio, where your family can gather for great stories from great storytellers in every episode. Stories bring us together, and we hope the stories on the show will spark memories and thoughts that you can share with the people you love. I'm your host, Sam Payne. Now imagine you're traveling far from home, maybe, and maybe you feel like a stranger where you are, like the place where you're traveling is completely foreign to you. You've never eaten food like the food that surrounds you. You've never met people like the people who surround you. Maybe you don't even speak the language. And just when you're feeling a bit lost, a little bit alone in a big world, something happens. You have dinner with someone, maybe, who loves the same band you loved in high school. Or you see someone reading a book that just happens to be a favorite of yours, and you say hi. Or you walk by a restaurant and smell something that triggers a memory of your grandma's kitchen. And suddenly you're surprised to feel at home in a place where you never thought you'd feel at home. You feel a little less like a stranger. The world gets smaller, and you feel a little more like you belong in it. Well, that's how today's stories have us thinking. And our first storyteller is Antonio Rocha, who grew up in Brazil, but who has made his home in Maine for many years, decades. And this story is about a trip Antonio took to India. What would he find there that would make him feel less like a stranger and more like he belongs? You'll find out. Here's Antonio, recorded live in the Appleseed studio.
You're very kind. Every time I go to India is a trip of a lifetime. I've performed in India 3 different times now and got to travel inside the country. And India and Brazil have a lot in common. The last time I went, I decided to go a little earlier, like a couple of weeks before the festival started. It was a festival on the East Coast, the Bay of Bengal, just a few hours south of Calcutta, in Bhubaneswar. Bhubaneswar is a lovely city by the coast and near the coast. And so I flew into New Delhi and I took a train to see the Taj Mahal. I've always wanted to see the Taj Mahal. And on the previous 2 trips, I wasn't able to do it. So I see this amazing, magnificent building. I had to go there twice, actually. You know, it's marble, it's heavy. It is really, really big. And it looks like fabric. It looks like lace. I was like, wow. So I went there twice. And then I decided to go to Rajasthan, the land of the kings. That's what it means. Raj means king, Stan means land. Land of the kings. I went to Jaipur, the capital city. It's known as the Pink City. And I took a train. It was going to be 5 hours. And as the train was snaking outside of Agra, I see on the rooftops of the houses, you know, they're like flat rooftops, and they're kids. A lot of them looking just like I looked when I was a kid, and they're flying kites. There are kites everywhere. Every rooftop had kids flying kites. And I'm looking at the sky filled with kites, and every house had at least one child flying a kite, and that took me back to when I was a kid in Brazil flying kites. Oh, those years as a child in Brazil. You know, again, this very strong feeling that India takes me back. You know, sometimes it's a word, because the Portuguese did a lot of trips to India trading spices. So it's the palm trees, it's the word sometimes, or a peanut seller. You know, once I saw a peanut seller outside of a hotel, and it was just like the way I used to buy peanuts in Brazil, roasted and served in a paper cone. And this time, I'm back in Brazil looking at the kids flying the kites. And in Brazil, when I was 12, I flew kites, just regular kites. Learned all sorts of maneuvers. And then, when I was 14, I upgraded to kite fighting. Kite fighting is a different story. You got to treat the line with glass, because you want to cut the other kite's line. So you go You go to the woods with your pocket knife and you cut bamboo and you make the sticks, and then you get number 10 line and you make the frame that's going to be, the base of the kite, and you make it nice and neat. Most of my kites were diamond shaped. And then you go to the store and you buy paper. Back when I was a kid, it was called Japanese paper. It's kind of origami paper. We call them Japanese paper. There are more Japanese in Brazil than anywhere else in the world besides Japan. Okay? So we have a lot of Japanese culture in Brazil. So we call this Japanese paper instead of calling origami paper. And so glue it, and then you make about 20, 30 kites on a pile like this. And then you go to the back of your house, to the backyard, and you tie the number 10 line. Number 10 you cannot break with your bare hands, And so you have to tie 200 feet or so of line in the backyard, and then you go find some broken glass on the streets, and if you can't find broken glass, you break a bottle, okay, very carefully, and you get a very thick piece of cloth, like an old bag or the legging of a pair of pants that's not being used anymore, and you roll that glass like a burrito. Okay, you make a burrito with the glass. Now you don't see the glass anymore, right? The glass is inside the cloth, and you get a rock or a brick, and it has to be a heavy rock, and you just smash that burrito. You just smash it into a pancake. So now you have a pancake-shaped thing in front of you, and you unroll that pancake. Now you open the pancake ever so slowly, because now you don't have broken glass in there anymore. You have powder glass. And with that powder glass, you're going to mix it with shoe glue or wood glue, something very strong like that, and you're going to make this mud out of it. That sand-like glass, and with the glue. It feels, you want to get it really thick mud, okay? Very thick. And now you're ready to treat the line. You hold the line that you've extended in your backyard, and you start to treat the line. You go up. You come back on the other side, and you come back. One line, one section after another. You treat that line, and then when the sun does its job, you pluck it, the excess glass falls off, and what you have, it's a line that looks like has been treated with fairy dust, right? Yeah, you got to be very careful with that, because it will cut your finger open. You will cut your finger off if you're not careful. So you tie that to the kite. You go to the end of the treated line. You tie that to a non-treated line. That's the line you're going to maneuver the kite with. You don't maneuver the kite with a glass line, just with the non-glass line. And you get the kite airborne, and you're very careful not to let the lines run on your finger at first. You're very easy. You just want to get the kite airborne, and you're on the top of a hill or on the top of somebody's house, on the top of your house, and you start to fly now. You feel the line that is not treated, and you start to maneuver, and there are kites coming towards you. You don't even see the kids, but you know the kids flying, and you start to dogfight, and all of a sudden you win, and you cut the other kite, and the kids waiting on the streets, and the kite starts to fall, and the kids go, wow, and they start to run, jumping over fences with dogs chasing them, and you don't cry if you lose a kite, because you have a pile of 30 kites. You just tie the line to another kite, and you back up, and you're learning how to dogfight better. You're getting the maneuvers that come down and go up around. Sometimes the kites get tangled on one another, and they go like this for a while, and then both kites break away, and you just smile, pick up another one. And that's what I was remembering. I pulled into Jaipur, and I got a tuk-tuk driver to take me to the hotel. His nickname is Lucky. And we set up for him to take me around town the next day. And he takes me around Jaipur. Oh, Jaipur, it's like you're in a movie set. It's like Indiana Jones. You have elephants going down the street. You have camels going down the street, pulling carts with construction material. Instead of donkeys. Instead of horses, they have camels. You come around a corner and you have somebody playing the flute on a sidewalk, dressed in traditional garb, and out of the basket comes a cobra. Stop the tuk-tuk, Lucky! I gotta take a video of this. And I'm videotaping everything. You know Johnny Quest. Johnny Quest, the TV show. I was like in a Johnny Quest movie. Cartoon or Indiana Jones. I don't know. And the kites are everywhere. I'm like, Lucky, there are kites everywhere. What's going on? Oh, Antonio, it's Kite Festival this coming weekend. You should stay and fly some kites. I'm like, oh, I used to fly kites when I was a kid, and I can't stay. I'm going to be at a festival 2 hours by plane away from here. Oh, you're going to miss the festival. You sound really crazy about flying kites. Oh, I love it. It's really fun, and I'm just thinking of my childhood looking at this guy. Okay, here's the deal. When I finish showing you Jaipur, I'm going to take you home and you're going to fly kites with my kids. I have 3 daughters. Well, I have 2 daughters. Now I'm talking to this guy about kids and family and flying kites. And we're done with the tour. And we go to a kite shop and I buy 20 kites. And I'm looking at the kites. They're shaped and made just like the ones I used to make as a kid. I'm like, wow. And we go into his neighborhood. His neighborhood, it's tight. It's one house packed next to another house. There are brick buildings, 3 stories high, and they're really squeezed in. There are no alleyways almost. It's just like tiny little, walkways and tuk-tuks are perfect. They are these motorized rickshaws, with a roof. That's what a tuk-tuk is. And they are called different things depending where you are in India. And so we park and I enter his house and I'm bowing to everybody and everybody lives together. All the brothers, married or unmarried. Lucky has a bedroom for him, himself, and the 3 kids. A baby and a daughter who's about 8 and another who's about 13. And they have a small fridge and a TV. I greet his wife, and then he takes me up to the next level. And then I climb this ladder, this bamboo ladder, and I'm on the roof. And I get on the roof, and I walk over the zinc roof very carefully, and then I open to this concrete roof. And now I look at the whole neighborhood from up there. There's a tower behind me, and there's this whole neighborhood of kids everywhere, flying kites. The sky, I could count 70 of them. Beautiful sky, filled with kites. All right, I'm going to set you up here. Be careful, this line will cut your finger. We're going to do kite fighting. I had to do this when I was a kid. I made my own solution. It's like, oh no, we buy already like this. I'm like, whoa. And he's like, be careful. And it was really thick. This is like really serious kite fighting. And he ties it. He's like, I'm afraid you're going to hit a power line. Let me get the kite ready for you. I'm going to get the kite ready. And then when it's at altitude, I'll pass it on to you. All right. And I'm watching, and all of a sudden he hands me the line, and I'm flying. I'm 13, 14 all over again. Woo! Woo! And neighbors are coming up to the same roof because all of a sudden, there's this guy from Brazil and the U.S., only one, and he's visiting Lucky and his family, and the people are waving, and I'm waving, and then a kite starts to come, and the guy was good. He dove, his kite came from under mine, and lo, there goes my kite. And everybody goes, wukata, wukata, wukata. That means we're happy and sad for you all in one. Wukata, wukata. It's a cry of victory. It means don't cry over it. You have another kite. And we had many kites. And his daughters are flying kites. His wife is holding the baby. The baby's being passed around. And it's just like this happy afternoon, end of the day, and I'm flying another kite, and I'm trying to remember my maneuvers, but I'm rusty, but I'm smiling when all of a sudden a sound comes from the tower behind me, and it fills my soul. It's a sound I've heard in East Africa. It's a sound I've heard in the UAE. It's the call to prayer. There's a mosque just over there. And of course, there's a mosque just over there. This is Western India. The next thing west of this state called Rajasthan is Pakistan. another country altogether that was once part of India. And I knew I was in Muslim country. I don't care. I've flown on planes piloted by Muslim pilots. I've told stories to kids in Muslim schools in other parts of India and in the UAE. You're not gonna pray, Lucky? Not with the gas, the kite flying time. I grew up Catholic in Brazil. Did you know Brazil is the largest Catholic country in the world? I had no idea. Yep, it is. Well, here, it's Muslim world as far as your eyes can see. I'm like, I know. And I'm smiling, he's smiling. And then the wind starts to die down. The sun is setting. And this beautiful desert city sky just lights up with oranges and reds. And I'm back in the tuk-tuk, going to the hotel. I say goodbye to Lucky. We'll see each other the next morning anyway. And I go upstairs and I lay in bed, smiling from ear to ear, just revisiting that day, the elephants, the snakes, the beautiful buildings and palaces and museums, and the kite flying. And a thought crossed my mind. Wouldn't it be nice if we could put our differences aside and fly more kites together? Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was Antonio Rocha with Kite Fighting here on the Appleseed. Listening to this story, it reminds me of a business trip I took to Virginia years and years ago. I was headed to a big conference or something, but I was free one evening, and so I called the only folks I knew in the area, Moshe and Siona Shmueli. I didn't even know them all that well, but we had met one time. They were from Israel, and Moshe was a researcher with a research fellowship in Washington, D.C. And when they answered the phone and found out I was nearby, they were excited. It was Friday night, and they said, "Come, join us as we begin Shabbat, the Sabbath, together. We're already gathering with friends. Join us." Well, I had Sabbath practices from my own faith tradition, but I had never been in a Jewish home for Shabbat before, and I was excited. I was far from my own home, and this was before you could simply map stuff on your phone, and I had to figure out how to take the correct metro line to where Moshe would pick me up and take me to the house, and it took me a while to do that, frankly, but I did it in the end. And it was already late, way after dark, when we arrived at the house, but there was Siona waiting for us. And they had another friend there, too, another Jewish friend from Virginia, and I met him. And at first, it was different than anything I'd ever experienced. There were prayers and songs that everybody knew but me, in a language that everyone knew but me. And then out came the food, which was delicious, but different than anything I'd ever eaten. Traditional, familiar dishes to them. And I was trying to keep up, to pay attention to what was happening. A stranger in a lot of ways in the home of these folks, even though they were my friends. And then, around the food, we began to talk, and we talked about our families, and we talked about God, and our bellies filled up, and we found that we all wanted the same things for our families, and we all hoped for the same blessings from God. And before the evening was over, I found out that their friend from Virginia was a musician, a guitarist, kind of like me. I was a songwriter, and suddenly we were talking about our favorite guitars and our favorite players, and he was reciting poetry for me and asking me if I would share a song with him, something I wrote maybe. And I did that, and he loved it, and the evening wore on, and the candles burned brightly. And when it was time for Moshe to take me back to my hotel, Siona kissed me on the cheek and put into my hand a jar of honey from Israel, a souvenir of our evening together. And I walked out into the chilly darkness, headed toward Moshe's car, and I turned around and saw the cheery lights of the home of my friends. And I realized how much at home I had come to feel there, over just the space of an evening, a single evening, even though so many things about my own life were so different from theirs. My first Jewish Shabbat. It's one of my favorite memories, even today, so many years later. Got a memory like that? Well, that's where Antonio's story took me. Where did it take you? And who will you take along? I want to introduce you to another show from the BYU Radio family of podcasts. It's called The Lisa Show, and it's hosted by comedian, believer, actress, single mother Lisa Valentine Clark. The Lisa Show delves into the multitude of challenges and relationships that shape our lives, whether it's parenting, mental health questions, social issues. She and her council of moms will tackle it. She'll help you figure out this thing called life with a lot of laughs along the way. Lisa is a great person to hang around with. The Lisa Show, listen wherever you get your podcasts. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all kinds of places to listen to The Lisa Show whenever you like. The Lisa Show from BYU Radio. We're so glad to have you with us today on the Appleseed. You know, sometimes, like Antonio Rocha, we find ourselves filled with a feeling of home without our even looking too hard for it. But other times, finding a sense of home comes only after searching and searching for it. And that's how it is in our next story. A story that reminds me a little bit of the Hans Christian Andersen story of The Ugly Duckling. You know, the story in which a bird thinks he's just the most awkward duck in the world until he realizes that he's really a swan. Well, in this magical story, shared with us by the West Yorkshire storyteller Debs Newbold, a girl wonders if she'll ever fit in until, well, that's the story. Here's Debs with a story called The Little Girl Made of Salt.
And this story actually comes from the storytelling of Sue Hollingsworth. So thank you in advance, Sue. I'm going to offer this to you. My version of this story. There was a little girl, and she was made entirely of salt. And wherever this girl went, she never found a space. She travelled, and she looked for somewhere to be. But she was always different. She was welcomed, but not in that deep way that tells you that you're home. And she went from place to place, trying to find somewhere that she could fit. But she never really found it. And she was tired. But she kept on, walking mile after mile, seeking high, seeking low. And one day, she was so exhausted she felt she could not go on, but she caught a smell on the air. It was something that she'd never experienced before. It was something briny and fresh and alive with possibilities. It was a new wind that seemed to reach her from somewhere. So she decided that for want of a better goal, she would follow this scent. And so she walked on against tired limbs, against small hope. And she came to a hill, and this hill, it was made of grains of sand. It was hard to walk up this hill. In fact, this hill was so huge. It was a dune, this hill, a giant dune, spiked with marram grass, with no discernible path. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back sometimes, but she pulled herself up, always following this smell. And she was almost faint with exhaustion when she got to the very top of this dune, and she looked over, and there, arrayed before her, was something she had never seen in her whole life, the flat azure line of the horizon and the sea. And this little girl's eyes yawned to take in this sight. And the scent pulled her down the other side of the dune, down its warm slope, skidding down it. She almost felt her whole body laugh as she hit the hard sand at the base of the dune, and she walked towards the shoreline, towards this blue thing she'd never seen before. And when she reached the shoreline, everything, every sense in her body was called to. And she took one step placed her foot into the cool sea. And as she did, she felt her foot dissolve. She took another step and another, following the scent that seemed to be calling to her in some strange way. She moved further and further into the sea, and as she moved further, she felt more of herself dissolve and spread out and join every single molecule of the water, the azure water around her, and the water was now up to here. And just as the little girl's head dissolved, she had one shining thought. I'm home. Thank you.
Debs Newbold with The Little Girl Made of Salt. Have you ever been out of your comfort zone and then something happened to make you feel at home? Where do you most get that feeling of belonging? Have you ever done anything to help someone else feel at home in the world? I bet you've got some stories. We hope you'll share them with the people you love. In fact, we hope you'll share the stories with us. We might share them on the show. You can tag us on social media or send us a message at theappleseed@byu.edu. That's the Appleseed, all one word, at byu.edu. And here's a reminder to check out the Appleseed lesson plans on our website, BYUradio.org. Whether you're a teacher, a homeschooler, or a parent, you'll find lots of lessons and storytelling activities based on some of your favorite Appleseed stories. Find us on the Appleseed page there at BYUradio.org under the For Educators tab. We want to thank Antonio Rocha and Debs Newbold for sharing their stories with us today. You've listened to their stories. Now it's time to share some of your own. The Appleseed is produced by me, Sam Payne, Wendy Folsom, and Brian Tanner. Assistant producers include Garrett Gunnell, Carrie Griggs, Kay Hendrickson, and Nico Wetzel. And our post team is Trent Reimschussel and DJ Cromarty. We're pleased and proud to be among the many podcasts produced by the BYU Radio family of shows. If you want more great storytelling for the whole family, then search for our companion podcasts, Kaboom for original audio adventures, and Wink, stories for better bedtimes. All our podcasts can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on the BYU Radio app or at BYUradio.org. Don't forget to subscribe, rate us, leave us a review. That's how the shows grow. I'm Sam Payne, and we can't wait to be with you again on the Appleseed. Hi, Sam here. I just want to tell you about another podcast from BYU Radio. It's one you should really check out. It's called Uncomfy, Sticking with Moments That Challenge Us. And you can listen to it or watch it. It's an audio and video podcast. Now, on Uncomfy, you'll hear stories of real people in moments that challenge their perspective. And instead of getting angry or shutting down or backing off, they stuck with the discomfort. And sometimes that's getting tough feedback from a close friend. Sometimes that's hearing out a colleague from another side of the aisle politically, but in every case, they chose to stay open and curious in those tough moments, and they're glad they did. New episodes of Uncomfy drop every Wednesday. You can listen or watch on the BYU Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Uncomfy, Sticking with Moments That Challenge Us. Check it out.